Let's get ready, Broncos fans. Sean Payton is excited about kicking off the preseason, and we're right there with him. Last Sunday, we all watched the Eagles claim the Super Bowl victory over the Chiefs, and it was a thrilling moment for them. Watching that game made me think if the Broncos can fix the mistakes from last season and play with even more intensity, we could make a run for the Super Bowl this year. If you agree, smash that like button. And if you're feeling fired up, drop a comment saying, "Go Broncos." I want to see you in the 2025 Super Bowl. For the Denver Broncos to truly compete for a Super Bowl in 2025, there's one crucial thing they need to do: learn from teams like the Philadelphia Eagles and Kansas City Chiefs. It's not just about flashy signings or grabbing the next big quarterback. It's about building solid foundations in the trenches, both offense and defense, and making smart, strategic moves in free agency and trades. That's exactly what Howie Roseman did for the Eagles, and that's why they've stayed strong, no matter who's coaching or playing quarterback. Now let's take a step back and look at what's happening across the league. The Kansas City Chiefs, our toughest competition in the AFC West, just lost the Super Bowl to the Eagles by a score of 40-22. And trust me, that score doesn't tell the whole story. The Eagles controlled the game from start to finish. What made the difference? The trenches. The Eagles dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides, protecting Jalen Hurts and making it a nightmare for Patrick Mahomes. That's the key to success. If the Broncos want to finally get past the Chiefs, they'll need to take notes on how to win the battle in the trenches. To consistently beat the Chiefs and other top teams, the Broncos need to take a similar approach. But what exactly does that mean for Denver? Well, it boils down to three main strategies: addressing immediate needs through free agency and trades, planning for future needs before they become urgent, and always focusing on the trenches. Let's dive into each one. First, free agency and trades. The Eagles have been smart and aggressive in using free agency and trades to bring in established talent. Back in 2017, when they were building around Carson Wentz, they went all in with key signings. They did the same thing when Jalen Hurts was on his rookie contract, pulling off a blockbuster trade for A.J. Brown and consistently adding veteran depth where needed. This is how you build a roster that can compete year after year. The Broncos need to follow this model. While they don't need to go on a spending spree, they must identify key positions where experience and leadership can make an immediate difference. Whether it's signing a veteran offensive lineman, adding a powerful defensive tackle, or making a trade for a top playmaker, these moves will help the Broncos address their needs without feeling forced to make desperate picks in the draft. Next, drafting with the future in mind. This is where teams like the Eagles truly separate themselves. They don't just draft for the current season, they plan for the next 2 or 3 years. Look at what they've done in recent drafts. In 2021, they selected Landon Dickerson as a long-term replacement for Jason Kelce, even though Kelce still had some years left. In 2022, they drafted Jordan Davis, knowing Fletcher Cox wouldn't be around forever. The Broncos need to take a similar long-term approach, planning ahead instead of simply reacting to immediate needs. The Eagles have mastered the art of reloading, ensuring that when a veteran leaves, there's already someone ready to step in without missing a beat. The Broncos need to adopt this same strategy. Right now, players like Mike McGlinchey and Ben Powers are holding down the offensive line, but will they still be around in 2 or 3 years? Likely not. The same goes for defensive line players like John Franklin Myers and DJ Jones. Denver needs to start planning for these future departures now, rather than scrambling to replace them when it's too late. And here's the most crucial point: prioritizing the trenches. It doesn't matter how many playmakers you have at wide receiver or how great your running back is if you can't dominate the line of scrimmage. Just look at the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Their offensive line was overwhelmed, and their defense couldn't stop the Eagles' ground game. That's the recipe for success in today's NFL, and the Broncos must take it seriously. They need to focus on drafting top-notch linemen early and often, keeping their depth strong, and making sure their trenches are always solid. Some fans might argue, but we need playmakers too. And yes, that's true. You can't completely ignore skill positions. But the best teams don't rely solely on the draft to find these playmakers. Instead, they go out and acquire them through free agency and trades. Look at how the Eagles landed A.J. Brown or signed Saquon Barkley. That's how contenders build their rosters. If the Broncos want a game-changing tight end or wide receiver, they should pursue them through those avenues rather than using valuable draft picks on them. All of this allows the Broncos to focus their draft strategy on building long-term stability in the trenches, ensuring that the team remains competitive year after year. So what does all this mean for the Broncos' offseason? It means they need to be both aggressive and smart in free agency. If there's an opportunity to bring in a veteran offensive or defensive lineman, they need to seize it. If a high-impact trade is on the table, they should explore it. But when the draft comes around, the focus should shift toward the future, not just the immediate needs. It's crucial to address the line before it becomes a pressing problem. Building depth in the most important positions will lay the foundation for long-term success. By following the blueprint that's worked for teams like the Eagles and Chiefs, the Broncos can take that next step toward true contention. Now, Broncos country, it's your turn. What do you think is the best path forward for this team? Should they prioritize the trenches in the draft and use free agency to strengthen the skill positions? Or do you think the approach should be the other way around? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going. And if you're enjoying this breakdown, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more exclusive Broncos content. As we wrap up, remember this. The Broncos don't need to chase every big name on the market, but they must be selective and strategic. One area that absolutely must be addressed is the offensive line. We saw some positive moments from that unit last season, but consistency was a major issue. If the Broncos want to give their quarterback, whoever that ends up being, the best shot at success, upgrading the offensive line is a must. A smart move would be targeting a reliable veteran who can step in right away. Whether it's at right tackle, where Mike McGlinchey has been solid but not elite, or along the interior, where Ben Powers may not be the long-term answer, the Broncos should be on the lookout for a strong, experienced lineman who can offer stability. This will help as they continue to develop younger talent through the draft. The defensive line also needs attention. While Zach Allen has shown promise, there are still concerns about the overall depth and ability of the unit to consistently pressure opposing quarterbacks. The Broncos struggled to generate a pass rush in key moments last season, and that needs to change if they want to keep up with top teams like the Chiefs. The best teams have a deep rotation of pass rushers, but right now Denver doesn't have that luxury. One option would be to target a veteran defensive tackle or edge rusher in free agency, someone who can make an immediate impact and also mentor younger players. Another option could be to explore a trade for an established pass rusher, especially if a team is looking to move players due to cap constraints. Whatever the strategy, the Broncos must add proven talent to their defensive front. Addressing these key areas in free agency will set the Broncos up to enter the draft without feeling pressure to reach for certain positions. This brings us to the next critical step, focusing on long-term success in the draft, rather than making desperate moves for immediate fixes. The Eagles have truly mastered the art of planning ahead, and it's a strategy the Broncos should definitely adopt. Instead of waiting until a position becomes a glaring need, the Broncos should start thinking long-term now. We've already seen how Philadelphia drafted Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens as future replacements for Jason Kelce even before he retired. That forward-thinking mindset is exactly what Denver needs to embrace. If the Broncos are serious about long-term success, they should strongly consider using one of their top picks on an offensive lineman. Even if McGlinchey and Powers are around for another season or two, it's crucial to have young talent ready to step up behind them. Drafting a top-tier offensive tackle or guard now will ensure that when inevitable departures or injuries occur, the Broncos won't be caught off guard, scrambling to fill those spots. Now, Broncos country, it's time to hear from you. How should the team approach this offseason? Should they prioritize strengthening the offensive and defensive lines in the draft while using free agency to add playmakers? Or do you think a different approach is needed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more exclusive Broncos content. Until next time, let's ride.